In the ever-evolving world of combat sports, where spectacle often overshadows skill, few figures have stirred as much conversation as Jake Paul, the social media superstar turned professional boxer. Known as the problem child, Jake Paul has carved a unique niche in the boxing world, blending entertainment, bravado, and a surprising degree of athletic prowess. His latest challenge, a high-profile showdown against former middleweight champion Julio César Chávez Jr., has once again thrust him into the spotlight, raising questions about his legitimacy as a fighter and his ability to compete against seasoned professionals. The build-up to this fight, held on June 28, 2025, was filled with anticipation, controversy, and bold predictions from some of the biggest names in combat sports. Despite a disappointing performance that saw Paul lose to Chavez Jr., the event underscored his resilience, his ability to draw massive audiences, and his unwavering commitment to proving his doubters wrong. Jake Paul's journey into boxing is nothing short of extraordinary. A former YouTube sensation with millions of followers, Paul transitioned from creating viral content to stepping into the boxing ring, a move that initially drew skepticism from purists. His early fights were against fellow influencers and retired athletes, including a knockout victory over YouTuber Anessen Gibb and a devastating stoppage of former NBA player Nate Robinson. These bouts, while entertaining, did little to silence critics who argued that Paul was more of a showman than a serious athlete. However, as his career progressed, Paul began to take on more formidable opponents, including former UFC stars like Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, and Anderson Silva. Each fight showcased his growth as a boxer, with his power, speed, and ring awareness surprising many who had dismissed him as a gimmick. Paul's record, now standing at 10 wins and 2 losses with 7 knockouts, reflects a calculated approach to his opponent selection. His fights against Askren and Woodley, both former MMA champions, demonstrated his ability to capitalize on his physical advantages against smaller, older, or less experienced boxers. His victory over Anderson Silva, a former UFC middleweight champion, was a significant milestone, proving that Paul could hold his own against a combat sports legend, even if Silva was well past his prime. However, his loss to Tommy Fury, a professional boxer with a boxing pedigree, exposed vulnerabilities in Paul's game, particularly his struggle against opponents with superior technical skills. Undeterred, Paul bounced back with wins over Nate Diaz, Andre August, and Ryan Borland, further solidifying his status as a legitimate contender in the cruiserweight division. The fight against Julio César Chávez Jr. was billed as one of Paul's toughest tests to date. Chavez Jr., the son of the legendary Julio César Chávez Sr., is a former WBC middleweight champion with a record of 54 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. At 39 years old, Chavez Jr. is no longer at the peak of his powers, but his experience in the ring, with over 60 professional fights, made him a formidable opponent for Paul. The matchup was a classic Jake Paul fight, a clash against a recognizable name with a storied past, but one whose best days were arguably behind him. Chavez Jr.'s career has been marred by inconsistency, personal struggles, and criticism for failing to live up to his father's legacy. Nevertheless, his pedigree and experience made him a dangerous opponent, particularly for a fighter like Paul, who is still relatively new to the sport. In the lead-up to the fight, the boxing world was abuzz with opinions and predictions. DAZN Boxing released an exclusive feature highlighting the matchup, complete with interviews from both fighters and commentary from special guests. Among those weighing in was UFC lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan, who expressed admiration for Paul's rapid development as a boxer. Tsarukyan, a rising star in the UFC, was particularly impressed by Paul's ability to compete at a high level despite starting his boxing career later in life. Jake is a legend because to start boxing so late and show good boxing is not easy, Tsarukyan said. He also praised Paul's agility and mobility, noting that despite his size, Paul moves like a seasoned boxer. Tsarukyan's endorsement carried weight, as it came from a fighter known for his technical prowess and analytical approach to combat sports. Another high-profile figure who threw his support behind Paul was Oscar de la Hoya, the former 6th Division world champion and founder of Golden Boy Promotions, which co-promoted the event. De la Hoya, known for his flair for the dramatic, made headlines with his bold prediction for the fight. In a video released just days before the event, De la Hoya, standing in his underwear in true Golden Boy style, predicted that Paul would defeat Chavez Jr. by split decision in the 12th round. His confidence in Paul was surprising, given Chavez Jr.'s experience and De La Hoya's deep roots in the boxing world. However, De La Hoya's prediction also reflected the growing sentiment that Paul's unorthodox journey and relentless work ethic could lead him to upset more established fighters. The undercard for the Paul Chavez Jr. fight featured several notable bouts, including performances by Golden Boy Promotions fighters Gilberto Ramirez, Floyd Schofield, and Raul Curiel. De La Hoya's involvement in the event ensured that it was a spectacle from start to finish, with high production values and a star-studded audience. The anticipation surrounding the main event was palpable, as fans and analysts debated whether Paul could continue his streak of defeating faded legends or if Chavez Jr. would use his experience to expose Paul's limitations. On fight night, the atmosphere was electric. Paul entered the ring with his trademark confidence, backed by a massive fan base that had followed him from his YouTube days to his boxing career. Chavez Jr., on the other hand, appeared focused and determined to prove that he was still a force to be reckoned with. The early rounds were competitive, with both fighters landing clean shots and showcasing their respective strengths. Paul's speed and power were evident, but Chavez Jr.'s experience allowed him to weather the storm and counter effectively. As the fight progressed, it became clear that Paul was struggling to implement his game plan. Chavez Jr.'s defensive skills and ring generalship frustrated Paul, who admitted post-fight that he felt flat and unable to find his rhythm. In the end, Chavez Jr. emerged victorious, handing Paul his second professional loss. The defeat was a blow to Paul's aspirations of a world championship run, but his post-fight comments reflected his resilience and determination to move forward. "I just felt flat, man. Not my best performance," Paul said in the ring. "I guess that happens in the sport. You got to peak at the right moment. You only get one night, one chance, and I messed that up, I guess. But this is still the best job in the world. Thank you all for the support." Paul's ability to take the loss in stride and acknowledge Chavez Jr.'s preparation highlighted his growth as a fighter and a professional. Chavez Jr., for his part, was dismissive of Paul's skills in the lead-up to the fight, stating at the final press conference, "No, I don't think he's good. I think he tries. He trains hard, but he's not a good fighter." These comments added fuel to the rivalry, but Paul took them in stride, focusing on the challenge ahead. After the fight, Paul acknowledged Chavez Jr.'s speed and combinations, noting that while his power wasn't overwhelming, his technical ability posed problems. "His power wasn't that crazy. He just had good speed, good combinations," Paul said. "Anderson and Tyren hit really hard, so I was used to that." The loss to Chavez Jr. sparked renewed debate about Paul's place in the boxing world. Critics argued that the defeat exposed his limitations against experienced boxers, while supporters pointed to his willingness to take on tough challenges as evidence of his ambition. Paul's career has been defined by his ability to generate buzz and draw massive audiences, and the Chavez Jr. fight was no exception. Despite the loss, the event was a commercial success, with millions tuning in to watch the YouTuber-turned-boxer test himself against a former champion. Paul's journey in boxing is far from over. At 28 years old, he has time to refine his skills and continue his pursuit of a world title. His previous flirtation with a potential fight against Saul Canelo Alvarez, one of the biggest names in boxing, suggests that Paul is unafraid to aim high. While that matchup fell through, it demonstrated Paul's ability to insert himself into the conversation at the highest levels of the sport. For now, Paul remains focused on his long-term goals, vowing to return stronger and more prepared. "Judge me by my losses, because I'll be back," he said after the fight, a statement that encapsulates his relentless drive and refusal to be defined by setbacks. The Jake Paul phenomenon is a testament to the changing landscape of combat sports, where entertainment and athleticism are increasingly intertwined. His ability to transition from a social media star to a legitimate boxer has confounded critics and inspired a new generation of fans. While his loss to Chavez Jr. may have tempered expectations, it also highlighted his willingness to take risks and face adversity head-on. In a sport where heart and resilience are as important as skill, Paul's journey continues to captivate audiences around the world. As the dust settles on the Paul Chavez Jr. fight, the boxing world is left to ponder what's next for the problem child. Will he continue to chase big-name opponents, or will he focus on developing his skills against less heralded but technically proficient fighters? Whatever path he chooses, one thing is certain: Jake Paul will remain a polarizing and compelling figure in the sport, pushing boundaries and challenging conventions with every step he takes. For now, fans can only wait and see how he responds to this latest chapter in his improbable and fascinating boxing career.